welcome the Chief Experience Officer and Chief Brand Officer at Tripadvisor, Lindsay Nelson, in conversation with Skift Senior Research Analyst, Seth Borko.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Lindsay. Thank you for joining us. For those who don't know, Lindsay, you're really, in effect, responsible for almost everything kind of B2C at Tripadvisor. You got marketing, you got some loyalty, you got some e-commerce. So Lindsay has a very, very big role, and we're excited to have her here. So welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Seth. Happy to be here. I think last time I was at a Skift conference, it was in London. So this is my living room. It doesn't feel quite as exciting. And maybe, there's a package about to be delivered, but.
Well, we'll hold off. Hopefully we'll get no packages. We'll get it afterwards, but thank you. All right. I want to start off with something I think is very exciting for Tripadvisor. At Skift itself, we like to set a big theme every year for the industry, right? For the travel industry. And this year we're talking about creating travel's new economy. And one of those new economic features we keep talking about is this the time that subscription travel can really emerge on its own? And maybe we're thinking that because we're just watching so much Netflix, I don't know. But Tripadvisor is kind of thinking the same thing, right? Because you guys have been building your own B2C subscription offer, and it's going to be called Tripadvisor Plus. And I think actually it might come as a surprise to many people in the audience that it's basically live right now. In fact, it's kind of been. So can you tell us about Tripadvisor Plus? And if it is live, why can't I really find it on your homepage when I look for it?
Well, like all good betas, they're hard to find by design. But I mean, I think that the short answer is Tripadvisor Plus is a travel membership program. Right now, it costs $99 a year. And the set of benefits that we came out of the gate with, where you get savings on over 100,000 hotels, you get 10% off anything you book in the Tripadvisor Experiences store. And you also get access to the kind of sort of VIP perks that you might imagine from like an Amex Platinum. So free check-in, early check-in, late checkout, upgrades, food and bev credits. That's definitely not the long-term vision. I think the basis of savings, like we all like to get more for our money in travel. I think the relationship that consumers have to savings is quite unique in travel, right? Where you might go into a store and say, hey, I want that TV for $500 cheaper. But you don't like put that $500 like back in your pocket, right? You get more out of your trip. You stay longer, you upgrade your hotel, you go to that fancy, Michelin starred restaurant. And so as we think about the future of Plus, it's how do we continue to use our position as Tripadvisor and sort of leverage the scale of the community to keep adding more and more benefits. And they might be emotional benefits like exclusivity. They might be practical benefits like savings in additional categories. But we're pretty excited about where we started. To answer your question about why aren't you seeing it?
Yeah.
We're on a very tiny slice of traffic right now. And we're really focused on proving, what does product market fit look like in the very early stages. And unless you're going to save about $75, which basically makes the cost of the membership $25, it's unlikely that you'll see Plus today, but we'll be ramping in the next couple weeks and months.
Can you? I don't know if I'm asking more than I'm allowed to, but can you? What are the early signs in beta? Do you think like you're getting towards product market fit, or some things you need to work on with this small slice of small number? You can't really extrapolate, but what are you seeing?
Yeah, so I think with any subscription, you think about these different parts of the customer life cycle, right? You think about that moment that encourages you to actually like get your credit card out, sign up, go through those inevitable hurdles. And typically research indicates that that's like the no-brainer moment, right? The math in your head needs to be so simple and so obvious that you join. But it's a totally different set of challenges of how do you drive engagement and frequency, right? How do people feel connected and attached to the membership? And then what are the tactics and the reasons that people renew, right? And those are very different strategies, obviously, because we're a couple of weeks old. We're mostly focused on how do you create a compelling reason to join? And, the simplest is to say, hey, right now on this hotel that you're super excited about, you can save money, you can get a better room. It more than pays for itself because you're going to get free breakfast for a family of four at a really, nice hotel. But over time, that's not what's going to, kind of pull at your emotional heartstrings, right? That's not the reason that you may tell a friend. It might be for some. And so I think the long-term journey is, how do we have a set of compelling benefits that drive the join moment, the engagement moment, and the renewal moment. I will say, I think I've always been a bit of like an entrepreneur, which is a totally annoying phrase, but I'm super grateful for my career at Tripadvisor to build something like this. And you want to stay close to the customer. So I email every customer and I say, hey, thank you so much. This is new. There's kinks to be worked out. But email me, call me, let us know. And there's this one guy, and his subject line was Wild Bill, and no joke. And he said, here's some ideas for you, but I saved $800. And
Wow.
$800, I don't care who you are or how rich you are, $800 really matters. And so to me, that's the evidence that we're definitely onto something.
Well, that sounds like a wonderful perk, a direct line to Lindsay Nelson.
My email is very easy to find, so I don't know how much value that gets.
So do you have any ideas for how this, maybe give us do you have any pipe dreams for like how this could evolve? You said this, right? This is something you said to me in our prep that Amazon was 2-day shipping, but now that they're winning Emmys, what do you imagine you could win an Emmy for? And then when we talk in London in a few years' time, what do you think that could be?
Yeah, I think the Emmy, that's there's the cover of Vanity Fair and the Emmy moment, right? That's all we're really building for. I think there's one of the things coming from an outsider into the travel industry was a bit of surprise around the lack of innovation, right? And that's like an easy thing to say, but it's quite real, right? There's not a lot of fresh takes on how to create new customer experiences, how to even innovate around the perk, right? A early check-in, a free upgrade, but what else, right? And especially as there's so much rethinking of the business model that especially hotels are doing right now around how do you take advantage of your amenities space? How do you think about serving a customer that may not be staying overnight? In the earlier conversation about remote work, so I imagine Plus to be kind of like the epicenter of your travel lives. And as our travel lives blend with our work lives and our home lives, as all of these things kind of get turned upside down, there should be a Tripadvisor Plus benefit that meets some part of that need.
Yeah. I have one more question on this. We're going to run a quick poll. Yeah. So our consumers need more eager to sign up for subscription travel. Yeah. The majority says yes. So we're on, you are on the right path. I'm glad that poll didn't go the wrong way. Let me ask you, I guess, a more serious question, because Tripadvisor has tried to innovate and to diversify. It's launched some interesting initiatives that maybe have not quite stuck. I'm thinking of like the social feed, for instance. I think that was a really good idea to be more social, to bring kind of non-native advertisers in, but that idea didn't really stick. It didn't really take off. How are you guys what have you learned from that? How are you guys confident that actually you think that this can launch and can be a platform for innovation?
Yeah, so I think if your instinct around a failed idea is to never try again, then I think your future as a company is going to be pretty limited. And I get this question all the time. I get it externally and internally. And so I think it's important to ground in that, not everything is going to work. And driving a risk-tolerant culture, especially in an industry that doesn't necessarily define itself by its innovation, isn't easy, right? And so it's okay that those ideas didn't work. I think what's important is, and this has been a lot of the work that we've done over the last 2 years since I joined, is how do you align your brand strategy, your product strategy, your technology strategy, and your business model? Yeah. And when you're trying to innovate on just one of those pieces, but your tech isn't there, or your brand doesn't accommodate it or take space for it, or your product roadmap is in service of a completely different thing, it's very hard to be successful. And I think one of the benefits that we did, which I'm sure so many people listening right now, is COVID gave us a year to reset. And the first thing you do when you reset is you look around and you first say, what do I hold on to? What's really important to us? As you start thinking about the really tough decisions around cost management. And then what are those assets work? Where is our moat? And so I think our focus on saying, let's go back to our roots. Let's focus on the traveler. Let's focus on what it means to be a unique company at this super original sort of nexus point in the industry, where we can bring new value to travelers, where we can forego the commission business model, because that wasn't our business model in the first place, and create something that's just pure value. And our product roadmap, our brand roadmap, and our business model are now finding synergies, and I think in ways that they didn't before.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. It makes a lot of sense, focusing on the alignment. So actually, you mentioned strategy alignment, you mentioned competitive moats. I wanted to shift a bit and talk about another area of your world, which is the experiences business. I think it was really underappreciated just how dominant Tripadvisor can be in this space. Between Viator and yourself, I think it's the largest inventory of online bookable supply in the tours and activities sector. But you've recently made it a lot harder to onboard new experiences. And previously, I would have said your moat and your strategy was to have the most inventory possible. But if it's harder to onboard new experiences, your competitors are going to catch up with you. You're kind of giving them some breathing room. So was that intentional? Was this a shift in strategy? What's the deal?
Yeah, so I might rephrase hard to onboard with introducing more control in the process. And I think that notion around quality really matters. I don't know if it's a strategy shift, but it's certainly really important to us today. And I think in many e-commerce businesses inside and outside of travel, right, a good chunk of your demand is focused on a very small subset of your total availability. And so, and when you fill the store to the brim and you run that playbook, which is super common in travel, right? Which is like, get all the stuff, and the company with all the stuff and the most stuff wins. I think, you then run into what is often described as paradox of choice, right? That the modern customer of today expects a point of view of the brand, right? They expect that if you are merchandising something to me, you're selling something to me, give me some instinct as to whether of the 55, tours of the Statue of Liberty or the Colosseum, which do I care about? And as a travel guidance company, I think we take that especially seriously. So the focus on how do we make sure we have the best experiences? How do we take a point of view on what good looks like? And the information that's important to travelers in making decisions about how to spend their money. And if that means that we introduce some additional steps in how we think about making supply available, I think ultimately it's in the best interest of the customer.
And so what is that going to look like more and more? Is this going to be like travel inspiration? Is it going to be personalized marketing? Like, how are you going to kind of get at that? How are you going to present these things to the customer in a less paradoxical way?
Yeah. So we think about this as merchandising, which is not exactly personalization. It's the mix of art and science about how do you make choices about the way that you group and organize stuff. And then how do you present those choices back to the customer? Retail has been doing this, especially luxury retail does this very, very well, right? And it gives you access points into discovery based on sort of the mental model of an actual traveler, right? So especially in the attractions category, and this is true for us today, this is something we have to work on, is you can't think like a supplier, right? The supplier might say, I have air activities, or I have water activities, or I have a 3-day tour. That isn't really how people travel. And it certainly isn't how they plan, right? You might think about, give me something I can book spontaneously. Give me something that I can do in the afternoon for an hour. Give me something that's food related. And so merchandising is a fresh, for us, is how do we take a fresh take on how we package up the choices that you have in the store and make that more fun, make that retail experience enjoyable, right? You think about the difference of going into IKEA, which is a very curated retail environment, to going into Bed Bath & Beyond. They might be selling the same stuff, but that does not feel, you don't walk out feeling in the same, now you end a trip at IKEA and you might want to be killing your partner, but there's parts of it that have a lot to be borrowed from.
Okay. And are you going to do more merchandising on the hotel side as well, or just on experiences?
Well, right now with the introduction of Plus, we're doing a ton of merchandising. And so I think that the strategy around how do we make it easy for you to find hotels that participate in Plus? How do you make it easier to, some of this stuff is really basic, right? Nobody uses filters, but filters are super helpful. And so how do we make the overall retail shopping experience as natural as possible? I think personally, there's more opportunity for us in the experiences category to really overhaul and rethink what does a digital retail environment really look like for that category. And so that's where we'll be spending a lot of time.
I want to talk lastly, about hotels, which kind of says something about how TripAdvisor has changed its business model a bit. But if it's just the core meta search model, the hotel model, and you're have a very big role in brand. I think trust is such a big deal with this crisis. You're a trusted brand. Have you seen change in user behaviors? Like, are you guys doing better relative to your meta search competitors? Like, how are you seeing your brand evolve, and is that helping your meta search position or not?
No, I might pull apart. I mean, I think the reason I don't think TripAdvisor has a competitor in the thing that we are, right? As a travel guidance company, people come to contribute reviews, read reviews. They spend hours in the forums asking questions, getting super specific firsthand advice. They also do price comparison, right? Because if you're thinking about planning a trip, you want to know what it's going to cost you, and are you getting a good deal? And so I don't know that I have a perspective on how our brand is faring relative to just a standard OTA, because I don't think the consumer sees us as in the same conversation. I think what we've tried to do is say during the last year, what does it mean to be a travel guidance company in a world where people aren't sure if they can travel? And we launched, quite publicly, a travel safety initiative. We've had tons of engagement. Businesses, I think, a couple 100,000 businesses have participated, and those that are participating are seeing more demand, right? Which to me shows evidence that people care about safety right now. They care about understanding how to navigate, restrictions and boundaries. And they really want that information from other travelers because that's who they trust, right? You've been there, you've seen it. And so we've put a lot of emphasis, not necessarily in pursuit of our meta business, but in meeting the needs of travelers right now.
Well, I guess then specifically, because you got to bring up the G word, the Google. Like, when I'm thinking about competitors, I'm thinking about TripAdvisor as a destination relative to a Google or relative to a Kayak. I'm wondering if, because you have all this other shop and stuff and review stuff, if you've seen any kind of concrete changes in user behavior. You've been pretty vocal as a company about Google and anti-competition kind of stuff. We've seen more of a crackdown on Google. I'm wondering if you're seeing your position, how at the top of the funnel, your position relative to Google, if anything's moved there.
Yeah, look, I think that the Google headwinds are well documented and well contested. I think our meta search business, again, I think people are always going to want to do price comparison. I also think you have to remember our audience is so big, right? On one end, you have super engaged members, right? And these people are worth multiples more than a flyby user who's looking at a specific hotel, trying to find a deal and ending up booking on Expedia. And so as we think about the future, it's not so mutually exclusive. It's not, and I think the question you're trying to ask me is like, is it the end of meta? And I don't think that that's like a reasonable question today, right? Because there's still a use case, and there's a section of our audience that's meeting a need for. I think at our scale, what we've totally under monetized and traditionally not overserved is our most engaged user base, right? And these are the people who are joining Plus, right? These are the people that are, contributing to the platform. And I think there's a world where those get to coexist. And there's lots of other examples. Most entertainment companies, they have a streaming service and they're still participating in Comcast platform, right? Spotify, you've got paid users, you've got free users. So there's a spectrum there.
All right. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for your time, Lindsay. I'm very excited. We've covered a lot of ground. I think there's a lot of really exciting developments at TripAdvisor. So thank you for kind of sharing your evolving strategy with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Seth, and become a member.
When I get the offer, I will.
Sounds good. Thanks.